me. It really bothers me every day. It really does bother me every day. Why can't the press use proper English anymore? Why can't anyone use proper English anymore? Proper nouns are not capitalized in newspapers, and the press can't spell anymore, and let alone understand it's versus its. No. Possessive, the only use of possessive it is the only time possessive does not come with an apostrophe. If it owns it, then it is ITS. Right? Get that square, get that in your head. And if you're an editor in a newspaper, you're fired and out of here. Get lost. Let's have an editor who knows how to use English. Get lost. Rant over.
Well, they probably turned it all over to AI or some other kind of writing chat thing and don't even bother checking it.
Yeah.
Because they don't know anymore.
Honestly, they haven't a frigging clue. And it's like the quality of English, the English language has been going down all day. And there was one that I came across this morning. There's one that I came across this morning. I wonder, yeah. So somebody writes in this, and the word Henka Sukara Maxi Infinity Dress is actually a product, right? And the question is, does anyone have Henka Sukara Maxi Infinity Dress? You know, instead of does anyone have the Henna Sukara Maxi Infinity Dress? That's the proper use of the English language. Let's get there, people. Let's get back again. Use your heads. Use your knowledge of the English language.
Right? Well, that's the problem. They're not taught it in school anymore.
Yeah.
Grammar used to be a thing when I was in school.
Well, when I was at school, I was useless at grammar, but I learned it afterwards because I had to communicate with people.
Well, nobody liked grammar, but just about everybody in my age group can speak and write. And, and the main thing people do now when they go to university, the first place they have to do is be coached on how to write a sentence.
Yeah.
How to write a paragraph.
Yeah.
That's the thing. When you go into university, that's one of the first courses people have to take.
Yeah. Yeah. Good morning, Mike. Yeah. And I'm not meaning you, Mike. You know, I'm just ranting on about these people who can't use the English language. Right? Anyway, yeah, there we go. All right. So that's my rant over. All right.
Oh, I got itchy nose.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on. The National Children's Center has launched its the Niagara Children's Center, I mispronounced, has launched its Help Kids Shine fundraising campaign. They have a target of raising $350,000, which doesn't seem a heck of a lot these days. But apparently the organization has served more than 5,300 children and youths with physical, developmental, and communicative problems, providing services such as physiotherapy, occupational therapy, speech and language services, argumentative and alternative communication therapy, family services, and therapeutic recreation. That's an interesting one. Therapeutic recreation. It's a thing.
Yes, I don't know what it is, but it is.
No, actually, there's what it is particularly with children, recreation, in other words, playing is a therapy in and of itself.
Yes, and it should be. And these children can't play like other kids sometimes because they have needs. The Niagara Children's Center is a big one for us. We have commitments. Kiwanis has commitments to the.
I thought you might somehow. I couldn't see Kiwanis not helping this organization.
And it's not just our group. This is a regional thing. So normally what you do with Kiwanis is when you collect money for your community, you spend it inside your community.
Yeah.
But the exception to that also is like hospitals that serve regional or other things that serve regional, where the people from Niagara Falls will go if they need the service. Now we've committed money year after year, and it's not just us; it's the other Kiwanis clubs in the region, St. Catharines and Welland as well. So this is a big one for us.
So you presumably club together to ensure that it's not just a $5,000 donation from your club, but there's one from St. Catharines, there's one from Welland, etc., etc.
Yeah, and this is one in which we coordinate our efforts, and we make commitments to the Niagara Children's Center over years, so that they can rely upon knowing that they're going to get X amount of donations.
Yeah.
But the services are always forever expensive and more time consuming and more staff and so on as the population grows. We've done what we can, and the campaign and it makes it very sure the campaign is launched on Wednesday and continuing all month is intended to help the organization continue providing programs and services not covered by government funding.
And that's the important aspect here.
Yeah.
Is that government funding isn't available for many of these things that this organization does. And, you know, we often put things down, or government funds this and that and the other. Yeah, it does not. There are many things the government does not now and will never fund.
That's why you have charities. That's why you have the Rotary Club. The Kiwanis, of course, is the kingpin of them all, and Lions and other groups that we have, and we all sort of specialize in a slightly different area. For instance, the Lions in particular zero in on eyesight. Others do the same, do different things. We have a lot of. We try to target our funds toward children, but we also target our funds towards like things like the Soup Kitchen and Salvation Army, which deals with families basically. But normally we try to zero in on the needs of kids and what they need. Like for instance, like I said before, we usually put out money in our own community, but the hospital needed a neonatal light therapy machine. It's an ultralight thing that they put brand new babies in to protect them from jaundice or help cure the jaundice. It's ultraviolet light treatment that they use. We gave the hospital $8,000 for one of those. It's a regional hospital, but wherever the children need to go, they need to go, and that means children from Niagara Falls. So that's one of the reasons why we did that. We also made a commitment to the hospital for over a space of years. 5,000. Those we also gave the library a continuous a one lump sum and then a continuous of 3 years of over $3,000 over 3 years in addition to that. So these are the things that are done. In this particular case, you can't do anything better than the NCC or the Early Childhood Community Center is another one. Heartland Forest is another one. If you have donation money, there are plenty of places in Niagara Falls in the Niagara region you can give it. And NCC is one of those places.
Well, they're talking about here businesses, Wormold, Massey, Keene, Lipinski, which sounds like, it's a chartered accounting firm, and O'Hara Trucking and Excavating of each pledge up to 25,000 as donor matching sponsors during the campaign.
Yeah, they that's good public relations for those companies, and I celebrate public relations money going out and making them prominent players or partners in the community. The difference between them, of course, and places like Kiwanis is that we are charities, not businesses, and but I think that it's a wonderful wonderful thing they're doing here. O'Hara Trucking is one of the contractors in Niagara Falls that do a lot of work on anything. Usually a lot of pipe and storm sewer work, and main breaks and so on.
Well, you often see their trucks around actually carrying, hauling aggregate, I would say, but yeah, and other things as well. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because impact actually in organizations like this, it's important that you actually have business sponsorship as well as personal donations, etc.
Yes, there are. So these Lipinski and O'Hara, big thumbs up for them. Doff my cap towards them. This is good public relations on their part as well, which is a good thing. And I don't have that negative view that they're only doing it to make themselves look good. No, I don't. I think there is an honest
most a lot of these companies, and I don't know the history in particular of these companies, but what happens in a lot of these instances is that corporations support organizations like the Niagara Children's Center because their child, because somebody in their organization had a child that suffered from something that needs something like cerebral palsy or brain injury or something like that, where the child needs that support. So somebody within that organization has had a child that suffers that, and the organization has therefore put in and supported that whole issue, right?
Yes. I think that like Ronald McDonald House of McDonald's, and you think of McDonald's as a huge, massive corporation, but I can tell you, if you talk to any child, any parent that's had a child that's had to have long hospital stays, and they've had to use the facilities at Ronald McDonald House, they will they'll say just a bounty of appreciation that they've done that.
Yeah, and Mike makes the point about the Ronald McDonald House in St. Catharines, which it basically is helping children in Hamilton. Childcare centres from in Hamilton, right? With child cancer centres are from Niagara Falls. So that's actually local people being assisted by the Ronald McDonald House, presumably in Hamilton.
Yeah, I celebrate that as well. So corporate dollars can go to good things, and it's good for their public image. And but I would say that among even the most callous executive, there's got to be a need to do something for the community, and to do something like that. You might say
it's McDonald's. It's McDonald's customers that create the Ronald McDonald houses anyway, because they donate and have donated millions over the years to the creation of such houses.
There's a lot of Big Macs in Ronald McDonald House.
Yeah, even if there's never a McDonald's eaten there.
Yes, I would imagine that, but we have to take these things as they are. McDonald's is a fast food restaurant, very popular. Wendy's and all these others are as well. They're not really all that good for us in the long run, but they are very popular. They're quick meal. So I think we should take them for what they are, is a a fast food place that does a service to us all. Even though I rarely go there, but they do a service to the community as well. Yeah. So I mean, getting corporate money into the community is a really good thing. So that's one positive spin-off you can use. Yeah. But in the meantime, other places like Kiwanis, Rotary, and Lions all go about their business trying to collect money and offset what the government cannot provide.
All right.
We rely on the people of our people of our community to be charitable.
Yeah. And the good thing about this is that you're paying it back within the community.
Yes.
Yeah.
So okay. NCC, Niagara Children's Center, is a definite positive. You cannot spend your money better, your donation money better than the Niagara Children's Center. And there's other ones too that you can give to, like the ECC, DC, Heartland Forest. So there's a lot of very positive where if a lot of people have doubts about they want to give it to charity, but they have doubts about it because they've heard so many things about waste and mismanagement. Not those places. You can be very confident that your money is well spent in those places, like the Niagara Children's Center.
All right. Okay. Anything else on that before I move on?
No, just another thumbs up. $350,000. I hope they get it. They're looking for that in a month. So
whether they get the full 350,000 or just a portion of it, it's all money going to a good cause.
Yeah, and this is over and above what the other commitments that have already been made to them. So they're just trying to bump their facilities up a little bit more.
This is over and above what Kiwanis give them already, over and above what other organizations give them, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So here's an interesting question, Michelle. What is middle class? Boomers and Gen Z disagree, that's for sure. So if you were born in 1997 and after, then likelihood is you form part of Gen Z. And the definition of middle class there is a clear showing of how much middle income has shifted in recent decades. 40% of Gen Zers think that 100,000 annual income is middle class, according to a Go Banking Rates survey. But in comparison, only 34% of boomers believe that you need to earn 100,000 a year to be considered middle class.
Well, it's the difference from perspective, isn't it? Seriously, it is the difference from perspective. Now, I remember this very clearly, like how people perceive money, and how the generation before perceives money than the new generation. There's always a bit of a difference, and there's a lag on the older generation.
Well, Gen Z people, according to this, Gen Z people have grown up in times of economic uncertainty, have witnessed increasing cost of living, and many view $100,000 income as a necessity for a comfortable lifestyle. I won't say I disagree, but the truth of the matter is that there's a heck of a lot of people that will probably never get $100,000 family income in their lifetime, let alone individual salary.
Well, let's put it this way: you cannot survive in this town unless you have $63,000. That's supposed to be the median wage in Niagara Falls. We found out that a couple of years ago that over 80% of us in Niagara Falls cannot afford a new house. The new houses that are being bought are from people from outside of town, not the people in town, because the people in town cannot afford a new house, as witnessed by my three sons that can't afford a house. I had two by the time they still haven't had one. So I've had, I think I actually had three 3 by the time they had one, plus a cottage party. By the time I was in my mid-30s, I'd had
never had a cottage, never kind of been able to buy a second home. I wish I had.
My point is that how else would you ever think that you could achieve anything like that unless you had a minimum of $100,000 coming in?
Yeah. Well, in fact, actually, I would go further than that. There's no such thing as middle. There's no, you've heard me say this before. I disagree with what your belief about middle class. There's no such thing as middle class. Either if you work for a living, you rely upon a job to survive. Doesn't matter how much money you earn, you're working class.
Yeah. Well, we used to just have in Ontario. You used to just have the upper economic people made a lot of money, the middle class, and the poor. But the middle class was made up from anybody from a professional class, like a teacher, to a factory worker, to a janitor. Yeah. So the janitor that mopped the floor in a school was considered middle class, just like the teacher in the school. But now the divisions between these people are becoming more and more distinguished. So you have upper middle class and middle class, and I suppose now we finally have the worker class that they have in England, working class. Basically, we didn't even use that term before, but now we are.
The definition, you see, I've always viewed the definition of working class as anybody, and hey, I knew a CEO who would say to me, "I'm working class. I'm not a member of the board. I'm employed here by the board to do the board's bidding, sure, right? But I'm working class. I could lose my job tomorrow, just like you could, right?"
Now, what is the expectation of somebody in the middle class now? And boomers think that you don't need as much as $100,000. But if you're looking at the expectations of middle class, which means you have a house, you have a car, and you have the regular amenities. Yeah. If you have the expectations of middle class, and that is the expectation of middle class, most of us think of that, then you're going to need $100,000, because anything under that's not going to do it. You're not going to be able to afford a house. Yeah. You're not going to be able to afford a car as well, and you're not going to be able to afford the usual minor amenities that you associate with middle class. You may not be able to send your kids to hockey practice or buy them hockey equipment or baseball equipment. And what happens is, like all middle class people before, they used to have a certain amount of income, and they used to be able to choose one or another thing that their kids could participate in. That good used car over that brand new one would be more of a choice. The nice little, maybe the house without a garage. You might aspire later to a house with a garage, sort of thing. But those things are now taken out of the realm of anyone under $100,000. In fact, $100,000 may not even cut it. And Mike Cushman agrees with you. There is no middle class anymore.
And further, he goes on to say, we're at the tipping point. There is only rich and poor. This will cause revolt and rebellion. We're almost there.
What is happening is the pooling of money. What happens in a capitalist society that we have now is money begins to pool up in high income people, and they don't even register as income. They just have ownership of a lot of things, and they don't even have a particular kind of income. And these tax dodges and everything are designed by them. They're designed by the people who lobby on their behalf, and that's why you have somebody that's making $1 billion a year paying 4 or 5% or 6% of their income, and that's not even their whole income. That's just part of their income because their other income is all salted away in a labyrinth of places you can't find it.
Yeah,
and all protected by
what
tax.
Mike is also adding here is real estate overpricing has destroyed the middle class and hence our country. And to some extent, you were talking about hiding away stuff. Well, housing is often the place that people hide money away.
Yes, they do. But yeah, all these things have come to roost. The middle class is taking the biggest beating. No particular political party seems to have any kind of ability to rein that back in and to reestablish the middle class. The middle class is that pool of resource for every government. It is the middle class. They don't have tax shelters. They don't have places to hide their money. They don't have places to invest. So when the government needs more tax money, like a carbon tax or income tax or any other kind of thing, it is the middle class that takes the hit. They can't go. They say they're going to go after the rich, but they never do because the rich always find a way of beating the system. And they can't go over the poor because they don't have any. So what do? They get the middle class. And it is a source of continuous revenue for them.
Yeah.
And that's why our standard of living is going down, because the government, when the governments are soaking the money out of the middle class to pay for the services they can't afford.
Yeah, and exactly that. So the question here is that our economic fortunes are going down the pan because of the fact that that middle income layer is not, is being squeezed for taxes in every direction. My father used to say, "Hey, we have to pay tax to breathe."
Tax what?
We have to pay a tax to breathe.
Yes. Well, the famous George Harrison song, "Tax Man." Be careful, I don't take it all. And when you die, the pennies on your eyes, they'll take them as well. You have to know a little bit about history. Put pennies on the eyes after you die, kind of thing was a thing to keep your eyes closed. But if you died and you have pennies on your eyes, they're going to take that too. So when in the end, the government decides that you have too much and they're going to take it. But imagine though, the government people are often, and I complain about them being elitist because they seem to be out of touch.
They're out of touch with everybody. Yeah.
They have these wonderful ideas, but they're not suffering. They're always finding their own tax shelters. They don't get hurt by any of this. Like I said before, the well that is dug the deepest is the one in the middle class. And when whether it's a corporation or whether it's the tax man, they need money or they need to raise their revenues, it is the middle class they attack. They want to suck the money out of the middle class. And Mike's right. Well, we saw what happened at the Freedom Convoy in Ottawa. That had a whole lot less to do with the vaccines than it did with just general disenchantment of the Canadian people. And I'm afraid that is going to continue, despite the fact that the feds are running around like chickens with their head cut off, throwing money everywhere they can get it. Get somebody to take it to sort of buy back some of the youth vote.
And it's always the same people that pay all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's you and me, brother.
Yeah. So I've had enough. I'm not paying a penny ever again.
I'm mad as hell and I'm not taking it anymore.
Yeah. Hey, it's about time we had some 60s demonstrations back, eh?
Yeah, definitely. Well, right now they're kind of busy with the Gaza thing, but wait till they're done with that, and because there's not much left of Gaza now. And one more hit in Rafah, and the whole thing will be one big concrete pile of dust, and so everybody will forget that and move on to something else.
What was that? Hell no, we won't go, or something like that, right?
Hell no, we won't go. Yeah, and I ain't no senator's son was the other one. I got to go to Vietnam because I ain't no senator's son, or somebody like Donald Trump who can get a doctor to say he's got bone spurs on his heels. That's why he can't get drafted. Can you imagine? Can you imagine a poor black guy or poor white guy going to the draft office and say, I can't go because I got these bone spurs on my heels? They say, get in line and shut up. But Donnie Trump comes with his high-powered doctor that his dad bought for him. I've got bone spurs. I can't go. Okay, here you go. Here, where's I am the doctor, and here's my $20,000 fee for your bone spur thing.
Yeah, but here's the difference, you see, is the doctor note for the poor guy uses the English version, whereas the doctor note for Donald Trump used Latin or Greek.
Yeah.
The Latin or Greek words in it. And the army recruiting officer,
osteosporoconus.
The army recruiting officer goes, bloody hell, that seems horrible. Okay, we don't need you.
He's got a suit and a tie, and he's standing beside a congressman. All right, there you go. You got your exemption.
Yeah. Okay. Trump's bone spurs really stop him from going golfing, eh? Golfing, yeah, no. Yeah, interesting question. So if you can golf, you can get across a military mound, eh?
Well, yeah, it's a different kind of bone spur. It's the bone spurs he's got only hurt him when he puts on army boots. But if he's putting on his golf shoes, it's actually better for them.
Yeah. Yeah. Do I believe that? Does this place look like an idiot? I don't believe that today. I don't believe that any day. Go to Vietnam, Mr. Trump. You might learn a thing or two.
Yeah. I'd rather send him to Gaza right now.
Okay. Let's talk dice days. So tabletop gamers across Southern Ontario, as well as a few from Western New York, spent the day playing a variety of multiplayer strategy games at the Military Museum on Victoria Avenue. Hey, that's an interesting thing to do. An interesting use of the property.
Yeah, I like this kind of thing. Now, I don't know. It tells you how it all started.
Yeah.
So what they have is a bunch of military board games and also role-playing board games and stuff. And they took them to the Niagara Falls Museum. And I think they should do this quite often and get the kids away from their electronic devices and get them actually doing a board game in that.
Well,
board games can be awful fun,
Yeah, some of these board games are like military strategy games, and hey, they're as useful as anything else, right?
Tabletop. Okay, what?
Yeah, as well as any other like board, dice board game or any other games at all. So yeah, it's a good use. It's a good use of the of the building. And I hope that people took a look around at the kids took a look around at the exhibits in the museum as well as playing their games.
Now, tabletop gamers from across Southern Ontario, as well as from Buffalo, New York, spent the day playing a variety of multiplayer strategy games. The event, Dice Days, as it was called, was organized by local historian John Heckman and the Hamilton Tabletop Gaming Society. I never knew they had one. Keeping with the history of the site, the majority of the games were tactically based on historical time periods, including the War of 1812, and featured miniature military units on model battlefields. Heckman said the military museum was an ideal location for the event. And then he goes off to talk about all the. Now, if you go through the armory there, that is hollowed ground, because our soldiers for the First World War, Second World War, and the Korean War all mustered there, and they went off. And many of those soldiers did not come back. And the ones that did come back some of them were wounded, either physically or emotionally or psychologically. They never came back the same, let's put it that way. Those enthusiastic, optimistic young men that marched off came back different and never were the same again. And I think that's very important for us to realize that happened, and that place is hollowed ground.
And the interesting thing is about this is Hamilton Tabletop Gaming Society, but again, they've hooked up with people from all over, including Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, Barnaby, Oregon, and a few other places where people have come in for this event.
I think it's a very positive thing. It is. Normally, when we think of events, we think of sporting events, and we do give a lot of paper and a lot of ink to sporting events. But this is, in a way, a recreational event that you have to use your mind. You have to. Some of these games are role-playing games, and of course, they talk about Dungeons and Dragons and.
Yeah, I was going to say Dungeons and Dragons is the idyllic role-playing game, because you can take yourself away from the real world into something that doesn't exist.
I think the positive thing here is that it's not electronic. You actually have to be there. Yeah, you have to move the pieces yourself. You have to. There is no advertisement distractions that come in on you from other places. So I think it's a very positive thing. And we have to remember too that when we do give a lot of ink to things like sports, which we do, then not everybody's into sports.
It's true.
Not everybody's into like some people like to exercise, but maybe not get involved in sports. Like I play sports my whole life, so it's of some interest to me. But there are people who play chess. There are people who play board games. There are people who do other things. And to have room and places for them to do that is positive. We have the Gale Center for the sports people. We have gyms all over the city. This is very good, because this now gives a place for people who like board games.
I remember when I was in my 4th and 5th year, we used to have a half-day sports afternoon, or at least most of the afternoon. One lesson, I think, and then we were off for sports in the afternoon on our sports day. But I remember one of the kids in my class who was not sporty, who basically said, "Well, why can't we do art projects on this day, or other projects like gaming or other things?" And I believe he was absolutely right. And I supported that idea, that the concept is that, hey, for those that are into sports, be into sports. Yes, there's value even for those who are not very athletic to go and do gym. But when it comes to the sports afternoon, games are a good thing, a good let out, and we should encourage that.
It says here that the board games are worth $17 billion in 2023. So that gives you an idea of the enthusiasm there. And I look around my own house. I got all kinds of board games. I haven't played many of them for a very long time, but we have them here. We used to use them up at the cottage. So you have things like Scrabble or Risk or Pictionary or some other kind of thing. They're all, as a matter of fact,
never managed to play Risk.
It's a good game. It's really good game. We used to have marathon Risk games, and that was when we were young guys. We used to go to somebody's house, put out the Risk game, and we might play for a couple of days. Come back the next weekend and carry them on.
I think the problem was with Risk, it's not a 2 or 3 person game. It has to be played with 5 or 6.
Well, in the end, it starts getting down to the 3 and the 4 people, and that would.
Yeah, but it's about alliances and things like that.
Yes, yeah. You make alliances.
You can't make an alliance if you've only got 2 or 3 people.
Yeah, and Mike Cushman says Risk is awesome. There are other games that are even more intellectually demanding than Risk. There was a game about the Russian front, exclusively about the Russian front. You're either the Germans or you're the Russians, and you can do that because that was 80% of the war. 80% of the war was the Russian front.
Yeah, the Eastern Front. Yeah.
Yeah, 8/10 of all German soldiers who died on the Eastern Front. So it gives you an idea. We talk about D-Day and the big battles in North Africa and in France, and that they were really minor compared to what was happening in the East.
Yeah. Well, and the point about that is, of course, because the Germans at least were actually obsessed by the need to kill off the Soviets and the communists, right? Okay,
that was just the hardest part of the war. Their obsession, one way or the other, really didn't measure much into it. It was a battle of.
No, but at a time, the Nazis were obsessed on the need to capture Moscow.
They wanted the living space that Russia was afforded, and this is and Operation Barb. Remember, the Germans and the Russians were allies, and together they crushed Poland, and the Germans backstabbed the Russians when Operation Barbarossa coming. This is the biggest mistake Hitler ever made in the war, and it probably was a great deal of relief to the Brits because at that particular time they were being beat up pretty good by the Germans. They had taken a shellacking in Europe. They had to run with their tails between their legs back to England. France got crushed. Right. It looked like a matter of time before the Germans got on boats and came to Britain. And when they attacked Russia, it was the best thing that ever happened to Britain.
And it arguably it changed the course of the war, and is the only reason we still speak the English language today. Otherwise, we'd be speaking Deutsche Sprech.
Yeah, and I don't know. We'd have funny haircuts and scars on our faces.
Anyway, yeah. All right. So good luck with the dice day. Good luck with the dice days, and let's have more of them. Canadians. Okay, so here's a question. This talks about. This is an old article, by the way. This is April 15th. Did you know this about the carbon rebate?
Was I the one that posted it?
Yeah, I think so.
Is that the one I just put up?
It doesn't matter. We'll skip over that one. The one that was put up last was actually the one that I think is more important that we cover today. The federal government is ignoring Premier Doug Ford's Doug Ford and promising to spend $357 million in affordable housing, funding it directly to regions and municipalities. Right.
This is a very interesting thing because not long ago, Trudeau said that really the federal government had plans back in 2015, as we keep hearing from the opposition. They had plans to build houses, and of course they should have because they were bringing a lot of people into the country, but they never did follow through with that.
Yeah.
About last year, it became glaringly evident to the federal government that Poilievre, particularly the Conservatives, were making a lot of hay out of the fact that the that voting group that the Liberals rely so much on, the young voting group, were very, very bitter of the fact that they couldn't afford a home.
Yeah.
The feds tried to stay out of it for a while, but then realized that this was going to be a huge election issue. Now they're dumping money as like drunken sailors all over the place, and they've been trying to work with the Ontario, the provincial governments, who are trying to do the same thing. Remember, Ford's got an accelerated building program going with the same sort of incentives that the feds now are giving to the provinces. However, the feds are getting very impatient because they have to be impatient because they have an election next year. So they have to show that their spending programs are making some headway. They have very little patience for these things to work themselves out in cooperation with the government. In this particular case, the Ontario government. And so they're just starting to throw money directly, bypassing the province altogether, and started handing money out to municipalities here, there, and everywhere.
But the thing about this is that when you look at the number of municipalities there are, 357 million is not much. Might be 1 million per municipality in Ontario.
They'll probably target places where they need the votes.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's the kind of thing that they will do. They'll target places where they're going to need the votes, where they think the young people that normally would have supported them will see. I'm not so sure it'll work because it's so quickly, knee-jerkly done, basically. Get some money, put it into housing really quick because we have to fix our reputation for making housing so expensive. So if we throw a lot of money at it really quick, and maybe the housing price will come down by the time election happens. They're going to run into the same problem that everybody else is running into. Where are the contractors to be able to do this work so quickly? You could have $357 million to give away, and let's say you give it to the same one person or one outfit. They still have a limited amount of resources to build.
Yeah.
And it's not just manpower, it's resources. Where do you suddenly accelerate the amount of resources you're getting? How do you suddenly need that much more lumber and steel and everything else?
And even if you could find 350 unemployed building workers, and you had a project, it would still take you 2 years to actually get a project for them to work on.
Yes. So
it's not all that they're really going to be doing is spending money. That money has to go to pre-existing projects, or it's not going to go anywhere at all.
Yeah, and that's one of the big problems that the Ford government's saying, that the feds are not taking into consideration the feds that says, well, you're not going to get your money anymore because you're too slow. And what the province is saying, that we have the oldest housing stock in Canada, and a lot of our money has to go into refurbishing existing housing units, and you're not taking that into consiration. The Fed said, well, everybody else has been able to do it, you should be able to do it. So we have this. I think it's the fact that, and I'll use perhaps not professional word, but the feds are horny to get a lot of money out there and a lot of housing things, because they have found out through the efforts of Poilievre in particular that they are really taking it on the chin for middle class people. There's that word, middle class, not being able to afford homes, and young particularly, and they need that young vote. So they're going to throw money at everything right now. They should have been doing since 2015. If they had initiated the programs they initially had in 2015, they wouldn't be in this jam. Yeah. So they're trying to make up for a lot of ground very quickly. I have a feeling that they have to be more careful, because they're going to waste this money if they just throw it at people. They want somebody, here's money. Take this money, so we can say we gave it to you.
And here, hey, if you were to pick,
you know, if you would have picked 350,000 people and spread this money out to 350,000 people, you just literally said, here, $100,000, Dave, you're one of our 350,000 people, and you spent it in the casino, or you spent it on your, you paid your mortgage off, etc., etc., etc. That money would actually be in the economy, would be floating around in the economy. Whereas the way this is actually proposed, the money's still not anywhere. It's not doing anything.
Well, my biggest fear is we're going to have arrive can housing. Basically, the feds are going to throw a lot of money at affordable housing, and what's going to happen is they're going to spend $350 million on a handful of housing developments that don't really measure up. What normally would have cost $50 million is going to cost them $350 million because they are so efficient. I mean, the ArriveCan app was supposed to cost $80,000. It cost nearly $60 million. The gun buyback program is supposed to only be $600 and something million, and it looks like it's going to go into the billions of dollars. I would rather the province and the feds decide how they're going to use this money, because it's if they slow down and are more considerate on how they spend it, it's less likely they're going to waste a lot of it.
And that's the biggest problem, is not when we look at issues like this, it's about you damn well know that what's going to end up happening is this $357 million is just going to be frittered away and wasted.
Yes. Yeah.
And there's no getting around
what I'm worried
that.
about. Yeah, they're throwing money like crazy out everywhere because they're really taking it. Their popularity is really hurting badly, and a big measure of that, as I said before, is the fact that the young voter, which they count on, is very disenchanted because they can't afford a house, and that's for obvious reasons. That's because they've brought in a lot of new immigrants without building houses to accommodate them. And that, of course, is going to be part of the problem. The other part of the problem, of course, is the healthcare, because they have too many people, not enough healthcare. So the young are looking at this. I don't have a house. My dad had a house. My grandfather had a house. I don't got a house.
Got a proposal for you.
Why is that, Mr. Trudeau? You know.
Yeah, I got a proposal for you. Here's how we can solve that issue. Right? We set up the Bank of Dave and Pete. Right, the Bank of Dave and Pete takes the $350 million and actually allows people to go buy houses. How about that?
Yeah. Well, okay. I hope you can get your $350 million from the government. You know what? Right now, if you went to the feds and say, you know what, my name is Shady Pete, and I've got, I can build you houses real quick. Here's my plans, and you dig something off the internet, and the government says, "Oh, good, we need to give money to somebody. Here we go. Here we give money to Shady Pete in Niagara Falls. They're going to build houses. Then you build a shack and run away for 350, and they proudly look at the shack and say, "This is affordable housing."
Yeah, and that's the truth about it, isn't it? Honestly.
And then Poilievre will stand up in Parliament and says, the government just spent $357 for Peter Giblett's garden shed.
$357 million for my garden shed, I'll have you know, yes. Man.
That's right.
And hey, it's going to be the most luxurious garden shed there ever was on the planet, right? Let's be clear about that. But I will have a garden shed. Right, yeah. And it won't house the homeless. It won't do, But hey, isn't that exactly what other people are going to end up doing? Right.
That's right.
I know I'm being very cynical. Here, and I know our listeners will actually take the cynicism the way it's meant. But honestly, sometimes you have to be cynical.
Yeah, it pays to be a little cynical when you talk about government or big business or anything else like that. But it's also your cynicism has to be measured by the facts. And I'm not at all cynical about the federal government who spent $59 million on an $80,000 app called ArriveCan.
I know, absolutely. And hey, here's I've got a better proposal with that. Is I could have taken that app. I could have taken that app, given it to the government for $1 million, and been $500,000 richer, and actually had a lot of friends who were richer as well. And it would have been a working app.
Yes, instead of something that nobody liked, nobody wanted, and it really didn't do anything.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's move on to something else, because we've got time to finish this off. Niagara Falls City Council approved $60,000 for the Gales Centre stormwater design as part of the next phase of the Thoroldstone Road extension project. But one councillor in particular expressed concern about a portion of the unopened road allowance in the area found to be heavily contaminated. Right. And
yeah, this is what Mike Cushman and Gary Wilkins have been talking about over and over and over and over again. The contaminated waste that is there, that was well part of the Cyanamid property and other parts of the area there. Why hasn't that been hauled away? It's just sitting there, and they're trying to find ways in which direct sewer water away from becoming contaminated and then being absorbed into the water and then down through our sewer line someplace.
Yeah.
So I like to know why that stuff is just not taken away. Nobody seems to want to deal with it because it's going to be expensive. But the faster we get rid of it, the faster we get rid of that contaminated land, the better. Now, Gary and Mike have strongly suspected that some of that contaminated soil is being carted off and used for roadbeds in other places in the city. Is that true? I don't know. But what is happening to it? Why is this big contamination pile just sitting there, oozing out contamination? And we're trying to build around it. We're trying to not to touch it. We're not trying to not to disturb it. We're trying to find ways around it. Why don't we just get rid of it?
Yeah. And the question here is that at some point, and it's, I'm not saying tomorrow, but at some point we know the Thoroldstone Road extension project is going to take from where it currently is at the well, it's called a bubble, where the end of Thoroldstone Road is right now, through to the roundabout at Bridge and Victoria. At some point, that's going to come through there. It's already slated. The money's already put aside, and between the province and the region, and it's ready. It's ready to go. The question is, it's not if, it's when, right? And the question here is that they have to do something about that contamination in order to build the extension of Thoroldstone Road.
Yes, and another problem is, do they extend 4th Avenue to Thoroldstone Road? That in itself will also disturb or potentially disturb a lot of the water. So they're talking about making the storm sewers and directing the water northward into the canal that we're going to need from the sewers, or through the Gale Center and into 4th Avenue. Anyways, all trying to tiptoe around all this contamination. When it just bothers me to think that it's there and it just keeps staying there, and the fact that nobody hauls it away is because it's expensive to haul away. So what we got to do is tiptoe around a contaminated part of the soil. So the only thing I could think of is get rid of it, because it's always going to be there and it's always going to be a source of contamination one way or another. And they're all trying to find ways of getting around it and not disturbing it.
You have no choice but to clean it up.
Why not get rid of it? I mean, it's going to cost money, but get rid of it. Once it's done, it's done.
And the problem here lies is that if we'd the amount of money it costs now to actually do it, it's probably, if you wind the clock on 10 years, it's going to cost you 100 times as much. Whereas if you wind the clock back 10 years, it costs 1/10 as much.
There are places where this stuff can be put. We just have to get rid of it.
Process.
Here we are trying to expand a road. We cannot expand 4th Avenue, which would be the logical thing, because it's going to go into contaminated land. But you still want to use the 4th Avenue sewers to direct water from in and around there. And the Gale Center, they're talking about getting a bigger sewer system in front of the Gale Center. Otherwise, they want to take the rainwater and then direct it through sewers into the canal. In any way you want to look at it, you still have potential contamination. How do you eliminate that? No, they're trying to tiptoe around it, not disturb it this way or another. The only final solution is to dig
it up and process it. Yeah. Dig it up and process it. Yeah, absolutely. That's the only way we can deal with it, right?
And do it in such a manner that it doesn't put at risk the neighbors in and around there. That's another thing. The longer it stays there, the more likely that contamination is going to creep and somehow find its way into the neighborhoods in and around there. So get rid of it.
Yeah, and while I'm looking at that, it's going, so you can all get around faster. The new and expanded Garden City Skyway Bridge. More trips, go faster, safer, easier. And this is an advert by Ontario on that page. Interesting, because we know that's coming down the line as well at some point.
Well, I see that as jobs. I see that as a boost to the economy of the Niagara region, having better roadways. Unfortunately, that is that's a necessary evil to build bigger, wider roads, and because you have most of your infrastructure, most of your everything, goods and services are done by truck.
Yeah,
and we have to be able to facilitate them.
And here's the question about, okay, so when talking about the Thorolstone Road extension and the Gale Centre, I think we've got no choice but to do the cleanup. And it's not just talking about cleanup on where you're going to build the road. It's cleanup across that entire area.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Like, you've got contaminated ground there. That cyanamide plant was there for a long, long time.
Yeah.
And they, and I worked with contractors through there. I'm telling you, there is probably no end to the contaminants that are in and around that soil. Get rid of it. Get rid of it. And whatever that Kim Crater pit is like, start there too. Like, we do have these pollutants. And once they're exposed, you think, okay, well, we just won't do anything with them. So what you have on Park Street is a big hole that just sits there. What you have now is a road and sewers that are being delayed and that because they don't know what to do with the contaminants. They want to move someplace where the contaminants aren't instead of just getting rid of them. I know it's going to be an expense. It's a rather large expense, but to have contaminated property there, that was the cost of that. And remember, the Gale Center is on contaminated property. People can go there for limited amounts of time, but they can't live there because they may find they get, they might get sick because of the contamination in and around the Gale Center. So that was our solution. Put a big asphalt cap over it and come play hockey, but don't live here because if you do, you might get cancer.
Yeah. And probably, hey, don't come and play hockey there every single day because if you do, you might get cancer.
Yeah, which is, I don't know, dumb. But anyway, do everybody a favor, get rid of the contaminants. I remember Mike Cushman and Gary Wilkins have been, particularly Mike's been hammering on this forever. Like, what about it? What about it? What about it? And there seems to not be the political will to even address it because it's an awkward, expensive, time-consuming job.
Yeah, we've left it for 40 years, right? We've left it for more than 40 years. Let's get this process. This basically the Thoroldstone Road extension, whatever you like about it, is going to happen, right? Let's get the contamination processed. Let's get it cleaned up. Then we can utilize that area for other things.
Yeah, the thing I didn't like about the article, though, is Eric Nichols didn't have a real idea of what was going on there. He said so in his in his statement there. Why? This has been around for a long time. It's been very important. So I think I hope he gets up to speed on this rather quickly. But I have a feeling that this is one that the politicians and the bureaucrats just don't want to deal with. It's almost kind of like the homeless thing. It's like this one of these never-ending things. As long as we pretend it's not there, then we won't bother with it.
Yeah. All right.
Anyway, I think we better get going. It's 8:07.
Yeah.
It's May 7th, 8:07. And without further ado, everyone, I bid you adieu. Let's get rid of those contaminants and let's get rid of Gaza and Ukraine war. Let's stop the massacre. Whatever you want to do when there's an election coming up next year, and I want everybody to make it very clear to their MPs and their MPPs, whatever, particularly the MPs because they're federal, is to quit putting their head in the sand.
Yeah.
Do something. Complain.
By the way, there's going to be, I'm expecting that there's going to be some, and when it comes to things like wars and that sort of thing, I already know what the news on Thursday morning is going to be.
Really?
Yeah. There's going to be a significant leader will have visited Canada on Wednesday.
Significant leader.
Yeah. I can't. I daren't say any more.
Palestinian leader?
I'm not even gonna go there.
Oh, right. I hope it's not yet Netanyahu. Talk about contamination.
All right. Anyway, we'll end it there. Yeah.
All right. Without further ado, I bid you adieu, everyone. Pray for peace.